hearty welcome to all of you in the Rabyd Nation, whether you are a citizen, a tourist, or just looking across the border. Welcome one and all. So appreciate all of you being here tonight on a Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern or 3 a.m., depending on where you're at. I see that, and Paul. Appreciate all of you, one and all. I'm your host, Ed Rabyd, former pastor, turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Appreciate everybody being here. Tonight, we're going to talk about the common mistakes that apologetics makes, according to Wes Huff. And so, we will definitely be looking into that. And Wes, as all of you well know, I have actually a series called Helping the Apologists, and I have endeavored over the years to help them get over their mistakes. And so I want to do that once again and see if Wes has some knowledge of the mistakes that actually apologetics is making, and see if they actually are legitimate mistakes or if he's really thought about them. So we'll see. So what's the, you know what? There we go. That's probably better. But yeah, thanks everybody. Well, we're going to get into Wes Huff tonight, dealing with his apologetic forms and see if he has come up with some mistakes that I have not. So there we'll see. We'll see what happens here. But also there's of course, a goal that is in the chat. That's my polite way of just kind of asking for money. I will wear whatever hat you guys choose in the poll for the rest of the stream if the goal is reached. And so that helps me keep going. But yes, thanks everybody for being a little patient there with the sound. Sometimes I forget some of the most basic things in life. So there we go, like having the microphone in front of my face instead of off to the side. So there we go. All right. Let's see. Let's do a quick roll call, see who's here. And I'll try to acknowledge everybody as they show up, as usual, but try to make it quick. But Fred is always here early on. Skeptic is here. Paul is here at 3 a.m. So there you go. Michael's here. Martin is here. Let's see. All right. I think actually that's all that's showed up in chat so far. We'll see what happens. But this video is by the Gospel Coalition or something to that effect. One of the things that they do is kind of they put on apologetics live streams, and then they take cuts from the live streams and put them up. And this is one of those cuts. It's about 5 minutes long. So I'm going to probably stop this one a lot because he's going to say some stuff that requires some reaction to. But, you know, I have always tried to help these apologists with fixing their problems, trying to tell them, you know, what they could do better, what evidence they need to provide. And I'm not going to do anything different. I'm just wondering tonight, and this is my question, is does Mr. Huff have any self-awareness of the problems in apologetics? That's my only question. Does he have some sort of self-awareness that there are problems in apologetics and he actually knows what they are? That's my question, because one of the things that's bothered me is, you know, I mean, I'm trying to help him out. But one of the things that's bothered me is if they don't actually address the questions of the problems in apologetics, they're going to continue to be ineffective. And we want to make sure that they get more effective. So I have to laugh at them less and actually engage what they have to say. So there we go. There we go. All right, let's put this up. Got to pause it, get the volume back up. But he's on here with a few other guys. They don't speak very much, so you don't have to worry about that. But we'll let the host of the show kind of deal with that. So Francis Reese makes to avoid his excuses. One, doing it at all in public and repeatedly. Okay, there we go. All right. So let's have so let's see what happens.
What are some approaches or arguments related to apologetics that you think pastors should avoid because you've seen them be unhelpful or even harmful? Just kind of think common mistakes that hurt rather than help our gospel witness.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Okay, the question is, what are 3 common mistakes? Now, true to form, Wes is not going to give us like a 1, 2, 3. You got to kind of figure that out as he goes. I think it's quite interesting what he does here. Like he talks the question through. The guy's asking for 3. I'm not really sure if he gives 3. He just keeps talking about different things that apologetics could do better. So yeah, it we'll see what we'll see what he does here. You're going to see what he does here, but he's very much how can I put this? It's very much a just him speaking through the question rather than him giving 3 reasons. I'll just put it that way. So, but what are the 3 common mistakes that ministers and other people make when doing apologetics? And Wes is going to attempt to answer that question. So here we go.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a part of the answer to that question is to be careful to make sure that we're answering the questions that people are actually asking.
All right, I got to stop there. Yeah, that'd be a good one. This has been one of my constant complaints with apologetics is people will ask questions, and what apologists are really trained to do is they are trained to move from the question to their script. And because they're trained to move from the question to the script, they don't actually answer the question. Like they have this pad answer, script answer that they want to give. And I learned this when I was in evangelism class way back when I was at Bible college in my early 20s. Like the whole training of evangelism is to get back onto the script and follow the script. Get it back on the script, follow the script. And one of the things you'll see apologists do is they do the same thing. Like somebody in the audience will ask a question. They've got, okay, what their brain process, okay, how do I file this to, something else that's already in my script rather than answer the question. So when they're asked tough questions, they're trying to get back to the script. And that's usually the way it's happened. Yes, your thumbnail looks awesome, Earl. Welcome to the lap in which our Lord naps. It looked great. Thank you. Yeah, no white papers. Blossom. I'll say one nice thing, that gray-haired Timothy. Okay, there you go. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll see. We'll probably see him again. But I agree with Wes on this one. I really do wish that apologists would actually answer the question that they're asked instead of doing the script, get on my talking points method. I mean, I were over at Captive Desk earlier talking about apologetics as well, and how presuppositionalist apologetics kind of assumes the answer and then you have to prove them wrong. But that's not the way things really work. When you're asked a question, you're supposed to answer the question, and they just don't. Apologists don't seem to want to do that. They kind of like they have their prepared answers and they don't do very well. So it gets off of that. But yes, okay, let's see. Anybody else besides Earl here? No, there you go. But welcome to the lap in which our Lord naps. All right, let's see if Wes makes any other good points so far. So far, so good.
And, Paul says in Colossians 4:5 to walk in wisdom towards outsiders, making the best of the use of the time, and let our speech always be seasoned with salt, so that we may know how to answer each person. And it's
okay, I got to stop there because he's quoting Colossians there. I have to reiterate to all you people that Colossians is pseudo-Paul. Like Colossians is definitely after probably Paul's been killed. That's why they think it's pseudo-Paul. And so the church is in a position where they're kind of in an awkward diplomatic position, heading into the second century. And so, yes, they're starting to, oh, hey, we need to like not piss people off, okay, with our apologetics, kind of, be nicer. The idea of being much more diplomatic is definitely in pseudo-Pauline letters, where you're like engaged in diplomacy instead of just browbeating people with, repent or burn, the end of the world's coming. And so when he quotes that verse, I do wish more apologists did that. Like I, using wisdom with unbelievers, season your language with salt, in other words, don't be a dick, would probably go a long way in helping apologists. Like I've lost track. Yes. Why are there so many Pauls? I don't know, Paul. But yes. But it's a good, I really wish, like I've had many conversations with apologists, and this is probably one verse that I've seen followed the least, using wisdom with unbelievers. Like I personally, like, we've had our drive-bys come here and they just like preach stuff, yell at me, say I'm going to hell. And it's like, how is that seasoned with salt? How is that using wisdom? How effective is that going to actually be at convincing me of anything? And so I do wish, Wes has actually quoted a verse that's probably not written by Paul the Apostle, but actually isn't too bad of a teaching, like don't be a dick. So there we go. Oh, I got to pick some ice and let it cook. Okay. All right. A tapestry. Well, I'll be interested to see that when that's finished. I need another tapestry around here. Michael's the name to have his label. Okay. So far, Wes is 2 for 2. Like he's made 2 very solid points. Let's see if this continues.
It's interesting that he says each person and not necessarily each objection. And realizing that there's a person, there's a questioner behind a lot of the questions that we see being asked. And I was once given this advice at a conference.
Okay, I'm going to stop there real quick. Or maybe not. It may not be quick. Yeah, this is one of the things that I try to remember when I'm here. Like even with the drive-bys, I like try to remember there's a human being behind that. So, hey, Philbert, good to see you. But yeah, I also try to like remember that everybody, there's more than an icon and a username. Okay, and so there's definitely a positive here with Wes as he's trying to say, okay, you got to remember there's a human being behind the question, and there's more to the question than just them being irritating. So so far he's doing pretty good. I think it's going to go off the rails here pretty soon, though.
That I spoke years and years ago, where one of the organizers simply beforehand kind of brought all of the speakers together and just encouraged us to picture the most vulnerable person we could think of in the audience and speak to that person directly.
Okay, now he's gone off the rails because I know what he means. When I was in evangelism training in Bible college, they used to talk about this all the time, that you were looking for somebody vulnerable. You're looking for somebody going through a hard time. You're looking for somebody who is vulnerable in the sense that they're emotionally vulnerable and there will be an easy mark. Now, they never said the easy mark part, but yes. It's like it's aim for the weak spots. Okay. What you're trying to do with apologetics is get people to believe the faith, supposedly, although I think a lot of apologetics is more keeping people in the pew these days. Yeah, he's looking for a mark. Okay, like that's exactly what we're talking about. And this is where Wes goes off the rails, because what he's basically saying is we know our he's probably not saying this because he doesn't believe it, but apologetics works most effectively against the weak and vulnerable. Okay, it doesn't work against somebody who's not going through a hard time. It doesn't work with somebody who is not emotionally distraught. But we can nail people who are emotionally distraught, going through a hard time. They just got diagnosed with cancer and they're looking for hope. At this point, he's kind of admitting that most apologetics is focused on people who are not in the best emotional state or mental state to actually engage mentally and philosophically what the argument actually is. So it's like you're looking for a mark, and you're looking for somebody who is definitely vulnerable to whatever you're selling. So you hate this keyboard? Okay. Yeah. Jelly man. Hey, Evan, good to see you. It's all right. You missed a few good points that Wes made, and now we're getting into the bad points. So, um, but but yeah, this is, and when I was in evangelism training in Bible college, because I try to bring that in, like my ministry training, this was definitely one of the tactics. Like if you were out on the street witnessing and you saw somebody crying, sitting on a bench, that was the person you went up to and started to present the gospel to. They're vulnerable. The Holy Spirit's brought them into it. We'd use all kinds of excuses, but it's the Holy Spirit has brought them into a position where you can present the gospel and they'll more easily accept it. So, yeah, the strategy is exploit the vulnerable people for donation money and try to keep people in faith. Yes. And I think what Wes is doing here is he's relating a story where this is exactly what he's doing. He's saying, we got to remember the vulnerable people. You got to present your apologetics to somebody who's vulnerable, who's going through a hard time, who's having a really rough time, because they're more receptive. When you're emotionally vulnerable, you're very receptive to all kinds of bullshit. It's how I remember, like when I get into emotionally vulnerable moments, and I do have them, I tend now to kind of stay away from stuff, like this. Like I deliberately like, hey, I don't want to hear anything like that right now. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of a vulture thing. I would agree. That's kind of the tactic. So Wes is kind of like, there we go. Like he's kind of openly admitted it. So yeah, it is worse than straw manning. It's playing on people. Okay. It's using somebody who's being a victim of something to then further victimize them by preaching to them. And I think it's, if your apologetics is really damn good, you should be able to preach it to somebody. This is me helping you apologists. Like if your truth is really solid and your apologetics is really good, you should be able to preach it to somebody who's not emotionally vulnerable, who's not going through a hard time, who's actually in a good mood, and be able to convince them with its evidence and reasonings. But that's not what apologetics does. It targets the vulnerable, and there's a reason for that. So, a child and one, yes, and fulfilling an emotional need, which is how I stayed in for so long. I can speak to that one as a testimony. So.
And I think, that can go awry in the sense of what I was saying before. We can almost pad the truth too much. But I think there's an aspect of,
I don't know how you pad the truth of the gospel. There's nothing much there to pad in the first place. So I think there's an assumption here that he has, like there's more truth than is necessary to believe. If that was the case, everybody would be a believer. So, but padding it, and the biggest issue there is going awry is you're going after vulnerable people, and people are going to point that out, that it's like not good. It's a dick move. Like, it's the kind of thing that cults do. Cults go after vulnerable people, and to me, religions are just large cults. And so the tactics are the same. They're just nicer about it. So, and religious angle. yes. They need to go after that. Yeah, it's a kind, I don't know if it's ad hominem, but it's definitely playing into people's vulnerabilities. Like you're going after them at a hard time. And, one of the tactics we were taught is, hey, maybe you're going in a hard time because God's trying to lead you to something better. And then you present the gospel, and then they latch onto that. Next thing you know, they're in church because of the emotional. And Pentecostalism, in my case, is a very emotionally laden religion to begin with. And so you then continue to tap them into that emotional, reason to keep coming to church. we had all kinds of tactics that we used different words for. We were like, God brings people low so that we can, that he can use his Holy Spirit to bring them in. And really, it's all just psychological manipulation where we're attacking somebody who's vulnerable. And he's saying that's good. That you need to do like apologetics for the lowest common denominator instead of trying to always hit the intellectual highs, I guess. But yeah, whatever. So yeah, if there was so much truth, there would be only one Abrahamic faith, correct? So there you go.
Speaking with graciousness and clarity in understanding that there's going to be a person who might have some baggage that we need to be aware of. I get this a lot when I do events and speak on the problem of evil, and someone inevitably comes up and starts talking to me afterwards about all of the issues they have with a good God and why certain bad things happen. And it's happened a few times where I've just realized, there's something going on here, and kind of tried to take the tone of the conversation down and said, those are great questions. Why would you ask those questions?
Okay. All right. Now this is an interesting evangelistic technique, and I want to point out how insidious it is. Okay. This goes along with the previous point of waiting till people are emotionally invulnerable. What Wes is doing here then in that particular moment is he's not actually dealing with the actual real problem of evil. He's now moved it to a personal problem of evil with the person, that the reason that they have a problem with the evil of God is what they're going through personally. It's not really an intellectual assent to the problem of evil or anything like that. So he's switching it to make it, to get away from the actual steel-manned problem of evil question. And now he's bringing it down to their personal problem of evil. And he's going to try to weave, at that point, what a lot of evangelists do is they try to weave it in such a way as to, well, the only reason it's the same thing that they tell me when the only reason you're an atheist is you had a bad experience. Well, it's kind of another way of doing that. Like, the only reason you have a problem with the problem of evil question is you're going through some hard times right now. Yeah, it's kind of the victim's fault. Like, it really, he's going to say, well, if you hadn't made these bad decisions against God's word, if you hadn't disobeyed his commands, you wouldn't be in this state right now. And you wouldn't have this emotional state that causes you to think that the problem of evil question is a valid thing. So yeah, back to lying, pretending to be stupid. Yes. And he thinks that this is a problem with apologetics, that they need to get more personal like that. I actually think that is the problem, that's exactly what they do. They tend to get more personal. They tend to go after the person. And once they do that, they try to patch into people's vulnerabilities. And then what you end up with is something that's not, actually dealing with the problem of evil. Like one of the big problems I've had with apologists over the years, several pre-supper apologists like Jim Bob and Daniel and several others, when they deal with the problem of evil, one of my largest problems with them when I reacted to them back then was, you're really like soft soaping, you're like giving the most soft soap argument for the problem of evil there is. Like, you're really toning it down. And this is kind of in a similar vein where we're going to move away from the actual big problem of the problem of evil. And then we're going to talk to this individualize it and say, well, your problem of evil isn't all that bad when you really think about it. And it kind of pulls it out of the realm of, hey, there's this big problem of evil question with an omni God, to, well, you're just pissed off at God because he's done this and this to you, or you think he's done this and to you. So yeah. So well, yeah, but you can I think what he's recommending here is exactly that, though. Like, we're going to get away from the actual philosophical debate, and we're going to focus on that individual's issue and why they have a problem with the problem of evil. Like, I tell you, you want a steel man version of the problem of evil, okay, that deals with God's omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. Okay. Like it's not that evil acts, God just knows about them. Okay. He's there in the room. Okay. So when you have somebody being sexually assaulted, God is sitting there in the room with the power to stop it, knows everything that's going on, knows all the harm that's being done, and does nothing. That's the problem of evil in an emotional nutshell. I try to make it emotional because they do it back to me, but you need to understand your God, Jesus, is sitting in the room 2 feet away from this action taking place, and he does nothing about it. That is the problem of evil. Okay. And so, yeah, it's just one of those things. Like it's just, I'm not impressed with this because we're moving it away from that steel man version to maybe a lighter version of what that person's going through. And I used to see this in evangelistic techniques. So this is, once again, this is nothing new. Like apologists never give me anything new. They just do the same shit. So, oh, really? Really? So God just watches somebody being sexually assaulted so it doesn't happen in heaven? It's not a very powerful God. That's got to be one of the dumbest things I've heard apologists say, if that's what you're doing. And calling me a dummy is a good way to get, like, if you can't be civil here, I try not to do that kind of stuff, but no, I'm sorry. That's about the worst reasoning I've heard in a long time about why evil happens here, so it doesn't happen there. You're basically saying your God is impotent and can't stop evil, okay, without it happening. So there you go. Probably not. They're willing. How's a rape victim a willing participant? What lesson? What are we talking about? What lesson are we being taught? I mean, you're just basically saying that your God is impotent. Like he can't stop evil. He's literally sitting in the room watching the harm happen to somebody else. Somebody's perpetrating a crime on somebody else that's very heinous. And then all of a sudden, somehow it's going to magically disappear in heaven. You need to do something there because I don't know how that works, because you're basically saying God can't stop evil now in the temporal existence, and the idea of temporal and eternity, you haven't proven either. So, yeah. It's not a joke. No, this guy's serious. I so what? So we got to go through a whole bunch of shitty shit. Well, that's poor design by God then. Like God can't design a world where we learn these lessons and deal with it. Like I'm not really sure what you're getting at, because honestly, if you're going to take that line of reasoning and you've just told me that your God isn't all powerful, like isn't willing to stop it, and he's kind of one of those sadomasochistic people that likes to watch people go through evil shit because he must get his rocks off on it or something. I mean, what are you saying? Like, it seems like a really bad economy there. So, yes. Yeah. Thanks, Martin. I mean, you're basically saying that your God, in order for God to have a peaceful, non-evil world in the future, we've got to sit around, watch a whole bunch of people do evil shit to each other so it doesn't happen later. I'm really not following the logic of that. That doesn't really even make any sense. And I think there's a lot of Christian theologians would go, what the hell did you just say? Okay. So I know I would have been one when I was still a Christian. So, like, for example, not to brag, if I wanted to, I would have sold one. Like I just said as a joke. I mean, I get it, but I was like, nah, it doesn't feel, I've been doing this too long. So, yeah. And when you call me dummy, like you're a dummy. Like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know you don't think very highly of me. And that's the only reason why you're saying something. So.
And find out that this person is dealing with some sort of personal hurt and realizing that a lot of those kind of big problem of evil questions are less theological and philosophical and sometimes more personal.
Okay, so once again, the reason why the person's having a problem with God is some personal experience that they went through. The reason why I'm an atheist is some personal experience I went through that was negative. The reason why people have struggles with faith is some personal experience. No. Okay, my deconversion was probably, if you wanted to put bookends on it, I'd probably say it was a 20-year process of slowly the death of 1,000 cuts making you realize that things don't work, that the claims of Christianity and everything are false, et cetera, et cetera. It had nothing, like it's the continued wrong trope. Like there have been tons of surveys done by atheists of why they left the faith and why they stay away. And personal experience is like way down the list. Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but the number one reason people walk away from the faith is they look at the truth claims of their religion, realize they're bullshit, and they walk away. There's also a big like how LGBTQ people are treated, not necessarily the doctrine about it, but how they're treated. If I think the Friendly Atheist just did a video about this where he presented all the statistics, but it's way down the list, personal experience. So if I'm going to help you apologists out, if you keep going along this line, you will actually not address people's problem of evil questions, because you're basically backhandedly, oh, these people are in such an emotion, they're too stupid to realize that the problem of evil arguments are bad. And it's like, no, the problem of evil arguments are very strong. Okay. And that's the problem. Like apologists dismiss them, but the reason they dismiss them is they know that they're very, very powerful. And if you keep playing this game, oh, it's just personal experience, you're going to continue to lose, because you're not understanding why people deconvert. You're not understanding why they leave religion and why they stay away. Okay. So it's like, yeah, keep doing this there, Wes, and you'll continue to watch more people continue to leave because you're not addressing the problem of evil. So it's like that. So loving God is not logical. Theists should have let go of this loving bit and stuck to the God that makes good and evil. You can defend this. Yes. And I've said that before, skeptic. Like you can defend a God that isn't all loving. Like a deist God that just doesn't give a shit is very defendable. Okay. You can say he's all powerful and he knows everything, but he doesn't give a shit. Like George Carlin made that statement. He said, I can respect that. It's when you add the all loving part, then you have a problem, because you either have to sacrifice that he doesn't know or isn't present, or he doesn't have the power. Okay. Like you have to get rid of one of his other attributes if you make him all loving. It's the all loving part that absolutely kills the idea of an omni-God, with all those factors. And that's been the problem that apologetics has had in dealing with the problem of evil. It's like, once you put the all loving part in, it's not very loving to watch somebody you care about go through some horrific experience, like being sexually assaulted or beat up or murdered or economically being taken advantage of. You know all that stuff and you do nothing about it. Okay. That's a problem. Okay. That's a problem for somebody who claims to be loving. Okay. I think we all instinctively know kind of what, when I'm loved, I kind of instinctively know that, it's like, and so, yeah. But yeah, if they had just gotten rid of that part, they would have been fine, but they're not. So yes. And we're going to all believe in the sun because you can see the sun, and that kind of helps the credibility along. One of my favorite lines. It's one of the lines that got me to start thinking. I used to listen to a lot of George Carlin when I was a Christian, and a lot of his bits on religion. I'm like, he's not wrong. Okay, he's just not wrong. So there you go. But yes. All right. So yeah, we're setting up the reason why they're having a problem with the problem of evil is some personal experience excuse. And sorry, apologists, you keep doing this, you're going to continue to fail. Okay, because you're not actually addressing the real reasons that people leave, which is the doctrine, which is the claims, which is the philosophical claims. That is the reason why people are leaving the faith. It's number one. Okay. And number two, it's like how, how different social groups are marginally treated by the church when supposedly the church is all this. And I get there's some personal stuff in there, but the number one reason people leave is doctrinal claims don't make sense. So don't have a good answer. Yeah, they just don't have a good answer. Okay. And that's been the problem. And what they really need to do is they need to work on having a better answer, but I don't think there is going to ever be a good answer. So, well, in the future, yeah, I'm going to say that it's a tough argument to crack, and it's going to be difficult. They're going to have to sit down and actually think about how to do it. And I don't think they're willing to do that. They'd rather do this shit right here, which is blame the person for some emotional trauma or something. That's why they have a problem with it. I don't think he ever does. It's not tough love, it's evil. Sorry, bro. No. Okay. If you were to sit in a room, sir, and watch somebody be sexually assaulted when you had the power to stop them, you would be considered an evil person. God does this every day, and somehow he's good. Sorry, that's basic excuses. You're just making excuses for this God. Okay. It's not tough love. Tough love. Oh, so if a father rapes his daughter, that's tough love. Okay. Is that tough love? Because that's what you're insinuating at the end. How is a person who is a victim of a crime a willing participant? You're not willing if somebody does something to you. You have a really poor definition of what willing. You're pissing me off because the idea that somebody who is a perpetrator and a victim are both willing participants is absolute garbage reasoning. It's absolute garbage. I'm sorry, when somebody is a victim of crime, they are not a willing participant. Are you saying that I wanted to be stolen from? Are you saying that I wanted to be assaulted? Are you saying that I wanted to be murdered? If that's the case, then why are these crimes? Like, why is the 10 Commandments against them? Why are some of the Bible verses actually sort of kind of against rape? Okay, if that's the case, then God's wrong for giving those commands because we just need to go through the evil so we don't have it later. This has got to be the most garbage reasoning I've heard in a long time in defense of this shit. Like it's worse than what Wes is doing. So there you go. Yeah, who willingly participated in being thrown into the gas chambers and then burned later? Come on. It's not willing participant, bro. Okay. There are people that are victims of crimes, not willing participants. Okay. As indicated by the law of God, of your Bible. Now, I think there's a lot of bullshit in the Bible when it comes to its law. But one of the things is, there are victims that deserve compensation. Well, if that's the case, and you have your willing participant argument, that just doesn't make any sense. Okay. Like you're not even making sense with your own beliefs. Okay. Like, yeah, I'm kind of pissed off too. Like, it's like, dude, victims being willing participants. That's the kind of reasoning we get from apologists these days on the problem of evil. Come on, man. Do better.
And that's something that's more of a zooming out approach. That there's the more getting into the nitty gritty, into the weeds of something like we need to be careful not to over exaggerate in certain claims apologetically. My area of speciality is in manuscripts, and there has been some exaggerations in sort of the apologetic endeavors to answer certain questions about manuscripts, where the manuscripts of the New Testament are compared to the writings of other ancient texts like Homer and Pliny and Plutarch, and it's talked about that the copies of the manuscripts of the New Testament dwarf all of these others, and that's actually true. But when I started to dig into,
okay, I'll address that a little bit. I got a chart I want to put up. I don't know, maybe I can hold on. Let's okay, where am I at with this video? 2 minutes 58 seconds. So I'm going to pull this off. So let's pull him off, and I want to put this back on. I hope everybody can see this pretty well. Yeah. By the way, Michael, I know why you're pissed off, because you are a German. And this notion that somehow the Holocaust victims were willing participants is kind of bullshit to you in a way that's very, very deep. And yes, I absolutely understand it. So, and I'm pissed off too, because I can't believe that somebody would sit there and say a victim of a crime is a willing participant. That's a load of shit. Okay. So, but yes, I get it. So it's like it's an obvious example for you, and I get it. But I think on an emotional level, people that are decent human beings get pissed off about this, and yeah, it just bothers me. Hey, Oren. But yes, but as to the manuscript questions, where he says, "Yeah, we have a lot of copies, and they're good ones." That's if you can see the bottom. The bottom is the time frame in which these manuscripts end, and there's the 5 different traditions that they come out of. And then, of course, the number of manuscripts is going up vertically. So you have, in the 2nd century, you have an Alexandrian manuscript that's very early. And I don't even think it's a full one, it's a fragment. But you have to start getting into the 3rd, 4th century before you get enough manuscripts to really say you have anything. So when he makes that claim that they're better than a lot of other things, that's probably true, but it's still kind of shit. Okay. Like the biggest problem with texts of antiquity is to make sure that they're close to the original events when we're talking history, and that they're good quality. It's not numbers. And of course, there's a ton of manuscripts when you get to like 1000, and everybody in the Byzantine Empire is copying. So yes, you get a bunch of those. So yes, but yeah, it's that. So it's yeah, it's all those victims willingly send themselves to hell. That's also good. The nations around you, you may, yeah. Thank you, Chuck. Oh, that's great, because like it's like I'm not trying to be rude, but the idea that everybody's a willing and participant in evil, and that's why we're supposed to do it, so we get rid of it, then you've just justified every crime happening, so it doesn't happen later in heaven. Like we might as well go out and commit more crimes and more atrocities, so that we make sure that the heaven to come is even more pure, if I follow that reasoning. So yeah, it's kind of crap. But I wanted to make sure everybody understood that when Wes is mentioning these manuscripts and how great they are, yeah, it's not all that great. Okay, like there's some problems. So
some of the catalogs of those manuscripts, what I found was that classics categorize manuscripts very differently than New Testament studies does, and that classics tends to catalog what they call functional manuscripts, where you can actually read from the document, whereas New Testament studies counts every fragment that has a discernible text that could be linked to a New Testament document as a manuscript. And so this...
Yes, that is true. Like when you do classical studies and you look at classical manuscripts, the way they do textual criticism is different than New Testament textual criticism, because New Testament textual criticism is largely in charge of Christians. And so they tend to overemphasize the number of manuscripts, but what they're often talking about is like, you know, you could have a fragment where you can kind of see that it's half a verse, and that counts as a manuscript. Whereas classical studies wants whole and complete manuscripts. There might be fragments and things of other manuscripts in like Homer and all the rest of them. It's just they don't, in classics, they don't tend to count like fragments of 5 words that you can obviously tell it's part of the Odyssey, but it's like they don't count it because you can't really read it. Okay, where New Testament tends to do, you know, he's going to say it here in a minute, that they do tend to play fast and loose with manuscripts, kind of like, you know, Matthew plays with prophecy. So yeah, postage bit size bits, you know, apologetics and Christians in general, every time they find like a verse of scripture on something, tend to classify it as a manuscript if it's over 300 years old. So it's like, yeah. Yeah, the missing data from the Xerox empire. Yes. Yeah, it's kind of the same. Like the Byzantine Empire just started copying manuscripts because they wanted to copy them. So that's why there's so many. But as many of us counter apologists have said, well, there's lots of copies of Harry Potter. It doesn't make it true. Lots of copies of things just means people copied things a lot. So it doesn't validate the truth of anything. And so this is not something that Wes is going to mention here, but I thought I would. So there you go.
Tends to start to compare apples to orchards, in that it is true that we do have far more New Testament copies of ancient manuscripts than we do, say, for Homer. But in sort of presenting that data, sometimes it can present something where we're not really making an accurate comparison, and the ends to the means actually end up skewing the data in a way that, if you actually look into the data, is somewhat unhelpful.
Okay, and what he's getting at, and I think he's on the right track. And if apologists and Christian scholars start actually doing this, they would actually do themselves a favor, which is those postage stamp size manuscripts, take those out. Stuff that's partial, like he says the words New Testament. Well, it's not really New Testament if it's only a fragment of Mark, or it's only a fragment of Colossians, or it's only a fragment of the book of James. It's not technically, in other scholarly disciplines, a full manuscript to be called something else. And I am sure that probably Homer has a bunch of those little crap things running around too, but they don't. Classical studies, textual studies doesn't count them. Like, they're looking for stuff where they can actually read good portions of the text, so it's just like it's not a good look. And so I think I'm going to partially agree with Wes here in his thoughts on this, but at the same time, he's still like saying it's better than anybody else's, but that's not saying much. Okay, because you're still, part of textual criticism problem is you don't see an explosion of manuscripts until the Byzantine Empire. And before that, it's kind of steady, rich people, codexes, rich people are commissioning like full New Testaments by the 4th and 5th centuries. You see that kind of thing, but it's not a lot of it. Okay. But when you get to the 1st and 2nd centuries, there's nothing significant. Like, it's one of those postage stamp things. So a lot of good variations on the problem I'm seeing, like JB's problem of pleasure and the logical problem of evil. Yeah. See, that's, and yeah, there's some good variations on it where we've kind of, like, I do my example because I think a lot of apologists really soft soap. They kind of not only straw man the problem of evil, they like use really soft straw. Like, it's like, and so they don't really give you the problem of evil, Storm. So it's like, it's been one of my problems with apologetics. I'm like, if you're going to do, the problem of evil, please steel man it. Okay. And do it. So yes, it's the saggiest straw. Yes. I hate this phrase. You can compare apples to oranges so easily. They're both fruit, round, and grow on trees. Yeah, well, he actually said apples to orchards. So he didn't say oranges. He said orchards. So you're comparing apples to orchids of oranges, I guess. What he's saying is, like, you're trying to compare the whole of every textual fragment that we have in the New Testament to very specific texts that are picked by classical studies. So, and I kind of get it. It's still nonsensical, but yes. Having one undercuts the omnipotence of his nature, restricts his power. Yes, it does. So, hey, it's Azo. Good to see you, Azo. Trust you're doing well. So, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. You can only compare things with differences to begin with. Yes. So there you go. There you go. All right. But he's making a kind of good meta point about apologetics and textual criticism, where they count things that other classical studies don't count as manuscripts, but might also exist. If, like, we counted small postage stamp fragments of Homer that we found, we'd probably have more in there, but it just wouldn't be quote quality. It's kind of clever, yeah. Yeah, he said apple to orchards. So it is kind of clever. He's basically saying that the two are really uncomparable, and it's a mistake when apologists kind of like do that. And so he's actually correct about that. So um, history isn't just recorded by biographers. Alexander shafted us isn't a biography. But yeah, there's also propaganda stuff about different things and stuff like that. There's propaganda literature from the past that we found. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to be taken into account. So yeah. So he is actually making a decent point. And I made this to apologists, like make sure you're factually accurate is probably a pretty good thing to say to apologists, because a lot of times I'm just like, no, you're just your your facts are way in error. That's usually what happens. So yeah, Jesus, Melissa Christ down. I don't know. There's a lot of Constantine got his name on a couple of them. Caesar, of course. Um, Alexander the Great got his name on shit. So, but not too many Jesuses. So there you go. Yes, Alexandria. There you go.
And so I think in our apologetic endeavors, I think trying to find the best forms of the argument and make sure that we're not over exaggerating for the purpose of getting to the conclusion, whereas the conclusion might actually be true. Something like a manuscript.
Okay, he's just said something where I think he doesn't realize the overall mistake of apologetics, which is assuming the conclusion. Like he just basically justified assuming the conclusion. The conclusion might be right, but we got to be careful how we get to that conclusion. Okay, now I want you to understand what he's saying there. He's saying we're already going to assume the conclusion is correct. We're not going to challenge that. We just got to look at how we're getting to the conclusion that's important. Like, so, yeah, what about Paul? I don't know. I don't know if Paul's been named after any cities. So there you go. But yeah, he just kind of like, we got to be careful about the argument we're making getting to our conclusions. Our conclusions are good, but we got to be careful about how we're arguing for them. So he's kind of admitted the base problem of apologetics, which is assuming your conclusion. So yes, this is what they do. It's what distinguishes apologetics from education, because they already have their conclusion. They just want to prove it. And that is the absolute bass backwards way of doing anything. Like it's not the way you do it. Okay. Forget the weight notes. Okay, there you go.
Manuscript comparison. The conclusion is still true that if we're going to trust that Thucydides wrote this particular document and we only have a couple dozen copies and they're written hundreds of years after we know the original was written, then we're going to have to apply that same standard to the New Testament where...
Okay, I've got to stop there too, because what he doesn't also seem to realize is that the authorship of sometimes even very famous books in antiquities is also questioned for the very same reason that the gospel authorship is questioned. Like there's a lot of these people that don't identify themselves, and there are many that do. Okay, so there's often a big difference. Like the reason why a lot of people think the good letters of Paul are the good letters of Paul is because he actually identifies himself. Okay, and there's no reason really to disprove that until you get to the later works where you're looking at the theology and the nature of the church, and things have changed, and that fits the second century church more than it does a first century church based on other things we know. So yes, but he's like, yes, that's true. Well, it's like we don't assume that this guy didn't write this book, like Homer didn't write the Odyssey, but actually there is in scholarship, did a guy named Homer actually write this? Okay, like there, what is the evidence for that? And that's still like debatable. Okay, like that people debate whether Julius Caesar wrote his memoirs. Okay, because there's stuff in them that's like that doesn't seem to jive with this other person over here. So the idea that like it's hardcore that these classics are automatically this is what they are, even in antiquity scholarships, is not true. So Okay. I'm always glad to pause and talk about that stuff. Like, it's just like he said apples to orchards, and I'm like, well, that's clever. Like, and he's right. See, like I listen, I try to give apologists credit when they make a good point. And don't get me wrong, the overall meta point that Wes is making is correct. Like they shouldn't overstate the case for the New Testament manuscripts, because some of them are just fragments of one book of the manuscript, not the whole thing. Like, if you take out fragments, I think the amount of manuscripts drops tremendously. Like, it hits the floor pretty hard, um, especially when you get to the older ones. Like, it's hard to find a whole codex style book of the whole New Testament until you get to the third, fourth centuries. So it's like it's hard. So he's saying don't overstate it, but he's still got the flaw of, we got our conclusion that it's really good stuff. We just got to be more subtle in stating it so we don't overstate ourselves. And it's like, but that's the problem there, Wes. You're assuming your conclusion is correct based on what you now said is overstated data. Okay, you can't seem to get the reasoning. Well, if the data is overstated, then maybe the conclusion is overstated. Okay, yeah, yes, exactly. Like, the historians do things very differently depending on what's stated, and Storm makes a very valid point here. Like, it's that when you approach different things in history, you approach it differently because of what it is. And so, yeah, it's not good. Like, he's making one good point, but he doesn't seem to realize that that point kind of undercuts his conclusion. And that's the whole point, is to build up evidence so you can draw a conclusion. But they draw their conclusions and work their way backwards. And that's so they kind of filter out the stuff that doesn't lead to their conclusion and keep the stuff that does lead to their conclusion, kind of, sort of. So seems to be more and more like a red herring. Screw the New Testament. Prove the God of the Old Testament first, and then we can discuss. Yeah, and there actually are some scholars that make that case. Like, if you're going to have the New Testament God be based on the Old, then you should probably prove that the Old one even existed or has some validity in history, and then move to the New Testament. But they don't seem to see that. So there's always that aspect of it. So Testaments, yes. Yes. See, the thing about Homer and Shakespeare is, well, although I don't care who wrote the works, it's not important in the way who actually wrote the Bible is. Yes, there is a different standard, because if the eyewitnesses of the events of the Gospels aren't eyewitnesses, that has a great bearing on whether I treat it as historical in the first place. Like, if you don't have somebody saying that I saw this, or where you got your sources, yeah, your religion is built on something that's false. And so you have to figure out what the hell you're going to do from there. Like, what are you going to do? Like, it's different, because religions have a tendency to try to push themselves on other people and try to build proselytes and take over governments and try to run things in the name of their religion. Well, that makes who wrote those books a little bit more important. Like, if you don't have any good examples of who wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which you don't, and you don't have any good examples where they got their sources for the material, then you don't have the right to push this shit on me. Okay. You don't have the right to do it anyway, but you have even less rationale to do it. Whereas Shakespeare, I don't give a damn. Like, you're right. Homer, I don't give a damn, because it's not a religion trying to press itself onto people's lives. So, I mean, I can enjoy Homer. I mean, I like the Iliad. I like the Odyssey, but it doesn't affect my life in the way religious claims do. So, yes. Find out that Jesus said to care about the OT in the Bibles for reason, then don't let Christians gloss over it. Yes. No God of the OT, no original sin. JC was delusional. We can kick the New Testament. Yes, exactly. Yes, the 500 witnesses. So there you go. Yeah, abbreviated for character. Yeah, I think I've watched that one. I may have So, but yeah, there's some good stuff out there about this textual stuff. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, but theologians like myself, how I used to be, I used to try to justify that they were the same person. That, but then you run into the idea that God grows up and he gets better over time, and you can't have that in a God that's perfect right from the beginning. So yeah, there's problems theologically. It's very problematic to reconcile the two testaments God concepts. So
The numbered manuscripts, both in quantity and in quality, are far better than Thucydides. So that's a true statement. But in some of the kind of presentation of the data that I've seen in some popular level apologetics endeavors, it tends to present the information in a way that, for individuals in my field, kind of cringe at how, you're playing loose and fast with some of those facts.
yes, kind of like Matthew plays with prophecy of the Old Testament. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, the problem is I don't think, like, here's my problem with the whole quantity of manuscripts argument for any book of antiquity. Okay, more copies doesn't indicate more truth. Okay, if I write the word God is not real in my word processor and then pump out 100,000 copies off my printer, it doesn't make that more true. Okay, like, the textual criticism part of any apologetics is important, but you still have to establish with other sources that this is actually true. And so no matter how many copies you have of something, it doesn't make it true. You can print a statement of anything you want to be true on a piece of paper a million times, and it doesn't make it more true. And that's something that, like, it's interesting that apologetics keeps that argument. Like, I would dump the whole quantity argument at this point. You're looking for quality manuscripts that are close to the time of writing, that actually have some authenticity as far as being written by somebody we actually know and who can verify the historicity of something. That's what historians are looking for. I don't think the quantity matters that much. It's almost like the last thing that anybody talks about. Like, well, we got this guy that has this version of historical ved, so this guy has this, and somebody copied this one more than this one. But that's all that means, is somebody copied one more than the other. It doesn't really tell us whether something is true or not. So yes, it's very popular and very silly. So it's like, I don't get why they keep it, Eric. I really don't. Because if they really thought about it for 5 seconds, like, okay, if I want something to be more true, then I just have to copy it a million times. But that's not what determines true. So it's like, yeah. It's also damning that apologists don't care about playing loose and fast until skeptics said embarrassing. Yes. Yeah, a lot of people do fast and loose shit. Fairy tales are a good example as well. They just collected the stories but didn't really author them. Yes. And that's kind of why the Gospels are, I think. They just collected them. And at least, though, we know the Brothers Grimm did the collection, right? We at least know that they did it. We still don't know what the source is of those tales, though, who originally told those tales. And, like, I've got a whole copy of the Grimm's Fairies Tales with all of them in it. And the one big problem is a lot of these tales are folk tales told around the campfire. Like, who originated them? Don't know. So even tried to back the Old Testament all. They do quote the Old Testament a lot to prove Jesus was Jesus, particularly prophecy, and Jesus himself quotes the Old Testament a lot. Paul tends to quote the Old Testament, and the writer of Hebrews, if you want a good one where the Old Testament stuff is weaved into the New Testament narrative, read the book of Hebrews, because whoever the writer of Hebrews is, he's definitely weaving a lot of Old Testament concepts and making them Jesus. So you can look at that. But yeah, the writer of Hebrews definitely pulls from Old Testament stuff and pulls it in. So there you go. Even for authority, starting a new religion was not allowed. Yes, they were kind of, in a sense, you're very right, because originally Christianity was not its own religion. It was kind of a sect of Judaism. So they weren't like hard starting something new. And so, yeah, they drew from the Old Testament a lot because then they could say, well, our foundation's still on the original revelation. So very true. You know? Yeah. I mean, yeah, the Grimm guys were pretty good. They did do document German and write a dictionary. That's probably pretty good. But yeah, I kind of like the Grimm's fairy tales. I've actually used the Grimm's fairy tales as basis for some of my fiction, but kind of in my own twisted way. Like I do, I have like a Red Riding Hood character and a wolf character that are in some of my fiction that are very, very urban fantasy type fiction. So yeah, yeah, because they didn't really write them; they just collected them. Like these were old folk tales that they heard people were saying. They were just collecting shit. They did the same pretty. They did do, as Michael points out, like they did a dictionary. They basically turned German into a language that had been codified and put together. So I give the Grimm's brothers plenty of credit, but they didn't necessarily make up all that stuff. They just a lot of it. So see you later, Fred. I'm not going to ban Evan. Just for warning, Blossom, Evan is like the designated dad joke guy. So if you just ignore him. I don't give a damn. Really, I don't believe in karma either. Okay. Like karma's bullshit. Like I've seen good people. How do you know that they did something evil that they deserved? I can throw that question right back to you. You don't know either. Okay. And it's still not a good rationale to say, oh, we need to have a whole bunch of bad things happen so everything's better in the future in eternity. It's like, one, it kind of undercuts the omniscience and omnipotence of God that he can't create a universe in which that doesn't take place. And, you're obviously saying that God obviously didn't get it right in the first place. And two, karma, I don't believe in. I don't believe in karma. So, it's interesting that you believe in karma, but you want to talk about God, but those two religions don't usually go together. So, like we're going to bring in some spiritual concept, but no, I don't. Why? So a 5-year-old girl needs to be taught a lesson by being sexually assaulted. Really? You want to go there? Okay, but don't sit there and call me a bad person because I think that's evil. Okay, like yeah, so um, the universe. I'm sorry, there's a lot of things that don't have creators. An avalanche. I mean, there's tons of things. Hurricanes. You don't see some guy in the middle of the storm waving his stick, creating a hurricane. I'm sorry, we've grown up past that superstitious nonsense. Like, there's plenty of. What do you mean by creator? Like, creators can be things too, and not just people. Sorry, nope. Addiction. Yeah, before they were there, like if you really go into Grimm's fairy tales and a lot of the original, like Red Riding Hood, as I recall, has a very dark moral. Like it's written to pubescent girls to be wary of strangers. Okay, like that's the whole point of the tale. So, yeah, suffer. Uh, Sorry, you're still arguing for a creator that's personal and you haven't proven that. So, once again, this is kind of presuppositionalist, like everything has a creator, prove me wrong. No, you have to prove there's a creator. That's the positive claim. So, when you come back with that, let me know. Let me know. Yeah, I don't believe karma. Like, I think Aaron Ross says karma was the last thing to die for him because he suddenly realized there's a bunch of good people in this world that get shit on and never get justice for it. And then there's other people that get away with evil and die getting away with evil, and karma doesn't seem to catch up with them. Like, if you really get real about karma, it suddenly realize it's not a thing. People don't reap what they sow a lot of times. And a lot of good people do a lot of good things and don't get any credit for it and often get shit on for it. So yeah, karma was one of those things that I died for me. But then, for John here though, so who created the creator? If everything has a creator, then who created the creator? So at some point, you have to believe that there's a creator without a creator. And so your argument falls apart. If everything has a creator, then your creator has to have a creator and infinite regress into infinity, I guess. So yeah, humans have mothers. They don't have creators. Hey, Santa's real? Santa's real? Outstanding. I know Fangs is real. You know, your mother doesn't need to be kind. Well done, Eric. Well done. It isn't that harmful. Don't take it that seriously. Yeah. Getting one guide, yes. There you go. But yes. So yeah, I don't know. Let's get back to Wes.
Funny anecdote about that. When you went on the Joe Rogan Experience, I was vaguely familiar with your work because you had written a few articles in the past for the Gospel Coalition. And then I noticed you were following me on X, and I was like, oh, wait, have we interacted before? So I searched our two names on X, and you debunked me on this very thing a few years ago because I had shared some chart comparing the number of copies. And you said something to the effect of, kinder than this is going to sound. I used to share charts like that before I started studying it. So, you know what? I consider it a claim to fame that I was debunked by Wes Huff.
Yeah. If you're debunked by Wes Huff, you're pretty sorry. But, um, but yes, a lot of apologists make this claim. They do their manuscript charts and comparatives, and like, it doesn't matter how many copies you have. It doesn't, you can have quality copies and it can still be presented. You can write a really good quality copy, codex copy of some mythology, of Norse mythology, doesn't make it true. Okay. Quality and quantity are nice questions because then, quality kind of says, oh, yeah, we can read this and read it without too much trouble. Quantity says, well, yeah, people really like this and they copied it a lot. What you're looking for is how close is it to the original writing so bullshit can't slide in. But then you're also looking at, okay, is this corroborated, sorry, with other things? Like, is there other things that say the same thing? Eyewitness testimony is lousy, but if you at least have eyewitness testimony, that's a step more than somebody copying something 16 times later, like you got the cosmic tame telephone. So there you go. Well, it is X now. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's everything that Elon Musk does. He's got to be like a puppy and piss on it and put his X on it. So there you go. There you go. Yeah, source. It is known. Yes, like it's. Oh yes. Using Biomer behavior. Yes. But yeah, like when you get debunked by another apologist for using bad apologetics, that's pretty low moment. I'm sorry for the dude. I feel bad for him actually. So there you go.
Before anyone else on the internet. Thanks for that.
That's good. You can put that in your bio.
Exactly.
All right, we can remove that now, and that's the end of it. But yeah, I don't know if I look back at it in apologetics. Yes, overstating your evidence is bad, but he seems to miss the entire point. that you shouldn't assume conclusions. Like, this is the biggest problem with apologetics and remains the biggest problem because they assume the conclusions. And I think that's why the other point is such a problematic thing of like assuming that atheists and people that don't believe because of some experience, they assume that conclusion. So no matter what the data says, like, no, people actually believe because they examine these beliefs. And you know what they find out? They're not true. Okay. It is known as still better than Habermas's evidence. I don't know about that. I'm sorry. I still think this is one of the greatest pictures ever. Thanks, Earl. because the thing is, this whole thing with Wes, though, is like it's the same kind of thing with Habermas. Like, Habermas assumed his conclusion that the resurrection was true and wrote a whole 4 volumes about it. I guess the 4th volume is coming out. You can pre-order it too. I can't remember how much it is. It's an astronomical, stupid rate of money just to hear him talk about the theological implications of the resurrection. Yeah, you know what the theological implication is? If it didn't happen, Paul is right. Your faith is vain and useless. And that's the problem. There is no good proof of the resurrection, and so your faith is vain and useless. And people like me study this stuff, get into this stuff, and eventually come to that conclusion, and we walk away. So it seems to me like if the number one reason people are walking away from the faith is they examine the truth claims and the doctrinal claims of the religion and decide, you know what, this is crap, and they walk away, that might be what you want to work on. Okay. Like that. Once again, it's going to be in my playlist of helping the apologists. So yes, it's Evidences Volume 4. Here, hold on. I usually check this stuff regularly before, what is the price of Gary Habermas books these days? Because it's been one of my fun moments. So, let's see, what are we going for these days? I saw that, though, the 4th one had a pre-order. Well, let's see. Volume 1 is still $40. It's half price. Volume 3 is 60% price. I think he's cheating on that one. Refutations is down to 1/3 of the price, Volume 2. And Volume 4, you can pre-order for $70. So there you go. You must have an Ultimate account. You're not 40 either. You're 04, because you still haven't told me who the creator of the creator is. Because if everything has a creator, once again, who created the creator? Oh, well, I have my creator God that isn't created. Okay, well, now you have something that isn't created, so that debunks your point that everything has a creator. So you're in a circuit. Okay. Well, now thank you, somebody. Here, let me do something else. Obviously, we don't want to have a discussion, so I'm going to hide him from the channel. So if you got to use terms like this and you're not listening to what I'm saying and you're just claiming victory without actually doing anything victorious, you get banned. So goodbye. I'd love to have good conversations with theists, but you still haven't showed me who your creator of your creator is. If you're going to stay with your premise, everything is created, then your creator also has to have a creator. Otherwise, you just violated your own premise. So, and some things, it's a righteous ban. Okay, thank you. I kind of thought so too, but it's like, I have no problem, but you're very presuppositional, which I always have a problem with, because you assume your conclusion before you even bother, like the apologist did here tonight on the stream. But like, it's like, no. So, sorry, dude, if you're going to make the statement, everything has a creator, because that's your premise, And then I point out to you, well, then who created your creator? And you are going to have to go to, well, okay, so no, my creator God isn't created. Okay, well, something didn't have a creator then. So your first premises is false. So your whole argument falls apart at that point. And then you call me this, but you can't even seem to reason out the fact that your own premises kind of turn your own argument into junk. So you're not 4-0, you're 0-4 because you still haven't figured that out. So yeah, it's like, you can call me names all you want. Name calling doesn't win you points around here. I've worked very hard not to call theists names. I sometimes fail and I'll apologize for it, but I used to be you. And so I get that it's not necessarily that Christians are stupid. It's not necessarily that Christians are bad people. Like, I have people come on this channel, call me stupid. You called me retarded. Okay. And I've had people call me immoral because I'm an atheist. But I have never done that to Christians. I don't think that Christians are immoral. I think their Bible sometimes causes good people to do evil things. But I've never, because I used to be you. Okay. I think that's one thing that a lot of you apologists who come here do that you don't seem to realize is that you're talking to somebody who used to be you. Okay. In spades. I used to be a fundamentalist Christian. Okay. When I was in the Assemblies of God, very fundamentalist when I first started out. And now I'm not. I'm an atheist. I've had that journey. Okay. So I already know what you're going to say before you say it half the time. But that creator argument is old as the hills, and it's a bad one because you say, oh, everything's got to have a creator. Name me one thing that doesn't have a creator. Your creator God, according to you. Oh, well, then something doesn't have a creator. So I've just proven with your God that some things don't have a creator to you. And so you're lost. Bye. Okay. Like, you just lost the argument because your first premise, everything has a creator, is false. So if you can't get that part, I can't help you, and there's no point in having a conversation. Created by the version of itself. I wish they, I know. No, they didn't really apologize for anything. So, yes, I know. I saw that. So seeds created the beans. Yes, another unconscious entity that created the beans. Thanks. Yeah, it's going to be that problem, like whatever it's going to. The problem with presuppositional apologetics is, I think I did a video on this last year about this time. The fact that presuppositionalists is appearing in more and more and more apologetics is a victory for atheists, because it tells me that they got to do the Charlie Kirk thing and just say, Jesus is Lord, prove me wrong. Tells me that they have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to arguing and burden of proof or any of that stuff. I can literally do this with Fangs. Fangs exists. Fangs nibbles on carrots in your garden. Fangs does all these things. Prove me wrong. My favorite one is part of the mythology. The actual mother and father of Jesus is Fangs and Marilyn Monroe. And Fangs, in a drunken state, took the zygote away from Marilyn Monroe that he created with her, implanted it in Mary, and now regrets that decision forever because he accidentally created Christianity. And prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. That's how ridiculous presuppositionalist apologetics is. Like, I know, like, over at Captive Death, they were discussing like presuppositional apologetics and all that, and they're trying to find an argument to get past it, to kind of see the wall. And I agree that what the one guy came up with is a great argument. But to me, the best argument remains, I can use presuppositionalist apologetics for any deity or any idea for that matter. Okay. The prove me wrong is trying to reverse the burden of proof. What you should be saying is, Jesus is Lord, and I'm going to prove it. That is more honest, and that is accepting of the burden of proof. Okay. So yes. I think he really regrets that night. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think so. Probably not. Oh, but yeah, you could do that. Like everything is changing and changing itself out. So the entire universe has kind of been different iterations of itself every moment. So yeah. Yeah, they're either presupposing, this is true, prove me wrong, or you guys don't have any objective morality without a God. Those seem to be the two big ones right now. Um, I've told them that objective morality isn't necessarily superior to subjective because subjective can change based on continued understanding of what's best for all parties, whereas objective morality can't change. So it's like, but you're right. I see this a lot right now. This is what's kind of going on. Saying, I don't need to defend subjective morality. I just need to show your objective is awful. Yes, that's probably true. Like, that's the problem with objective morality. It's stuck. Like, it can't grow. That's like the Bible has an objective morality to it. And so it's stuck with slavery. It's stuck with genocide. Like, it's stuck with those things being good in certain contexts because it's objective. Okay. And I can get away from that. Like, I'm like, no, I think we've grown up enough to realize that just because we don't like another group of people, how they live, we don't have the right to kill them all off. And, there's really no good rational reason why one person should own another person. Hey, maybe we can get rid of that. So there you go. Yeah, only certain things. I mean, let's be honest, Eric, there's a lot of life that we just go hoping that our precepts are right. I get that. But if I'm going to base my whole life on something, I need more than presuppositions. Like if I'm going to waste my whole worldview, the way I live, who I live with, who I have sex with, who I, do business with, how I do business with them, I need more than presuppositionalism. I need something more solid. So says the Lord our God in a contrary book with the mouse and men because women aren't allowed to preach. Exactly. And that's kind of like my whole point with our previous texter there is I just made you your point of you sit there and say, name me something without a creator, your creator God, according to you. Okay, so now we have something without a creator. So there could be other possibilities, something without a creator. But yes, but Christ is king. The whole presuppositional gag is very much what Charlie Cook used to put in front of his desk all the time. This is my statement of truth, prove me wrong. And the problem with the whole prove me wrong is it's backwards. No, you just made a positive claim, prove it right. Okay, prove it right. Create a sense of falsifiability, give me a hypothesis, prove it right. But they don't do that. And Wes tonight just demonstrated that again. It's like, oh yeah, that's really good stuff that we have for textual, and that's a good thing. But we got to reach that conclusion that we already presuppose in a different way, so that it's not so offensive or not so unscholarly. So yes. So there you go. Second breathness. All right, there we go. Principle Mathematica, getting rid of you in addition to recover for no benefit. Okay, there you go. Oh, it was written by the devil. Prove me wrong. Yeah, I don't know. It's written by Fangs, maybe. I don't know. Fangs might have written the Bible as a joke, and it went way too far. It is quite possible. Oh my goodness. But yes. All right. I don't know. Let's see. I haven't seen Earl in a while. So takes away the midway through volume 2 or of 3 to get to the addition and the initial axioms. Oh, okay. So it takes a while. Like they have to lay out their case before they do the axioms. Yeah, I can see that. That went down to Georgia. Oh, Evan. We keep Evan around for the dad jokes. We do. for those of you that appreciate that sort of thing. My kids are all grown up, so it gives me a sense of nostalgia when Evan talks sometimes. Oh, you can tag her. Yeah, she might. See, the thing is, I just want to prove that she's not asleep or something. She's done that to me before. She gets tired. So there you go. These are done if they don't understand the. Yeah, it's a great one because it's like, yeah. They plan and build up a set of theory and cardinality and eventually get to addition. Okay. Yeah. See, math is something that I'm good at as far as computation. I kind of proved that to myself when I went back to school in my 40s, but because I did a lot of business math classes and other math classes because I wanted to take a certain economic course that required a certain math class. And I had to like do other math classes to get to it so I could understand the math in it. And so I'm good at that part, but the whole theoretic stuff of how math works and stuff like that, it's like that's not my bag. So that is a very horrible fact. See, the problem, Martin, is Fangs have been known to get drunk from time to time or high, and then his judgment isn't always the greatest, and he profusely apologizes afterwards. But yes, so. Yeah, it's kind of a well, that's why people like it. My problem with my country right now is how blatantly so many people just accept authority. Like it's like the whole DNA of the Constitution of the United States is a distrust of authority and what people can do with authority. And I listen to people who just blatantly accept authority all the time, and it's like, no. And then you ask them if they're also religious, and usually there's a correlation. Religious people accepting authority also seem to accept political authority. It's kind of weird how that works. So, right, getting tired, says the Shumaku is lathe stream because he conked out at like. Yes. Oh, it's more existential horror. Okay, there we go. See, because my thing is practice when it comes to math. Like I want something that works. So there you go. See, like Storm, you probably understand math better than I do in a lot of different ways. So I haven't seen Cranky tonight. I don't know where he's at. Like he's usually here by now, and sometimes he comes and sometimes he doesn't. So like it's kind of been that way. But yes. So but yeah, like I don't the elder gods grace me with their presence depending on their mood, I think, and their availability. Like the elder gods never claim to be like omnipresent, so can always argue that listening to an apologist is un-American. Okay, there you go. Yes. Yeah, I have a hard time, like maybe it's my autism, but I just have a hard time accepting authoritative statements. Like if somebody says just do what you're told, like no. No, I'm not going to do it. So, but yeah, like I'm a poli-sci guy. I've read the Constitution many times. I've studied parts of it. And the one thing you really get from the founding fathers is don't trust your government. Like we're going to create systems in place so you don't have to trust your government. Okay, because people in power do shitty things. And, and some people don't seem to realize that these days, I guess. If some authority says it, it must be true. And that's a very religious notion. It's not an enlightenment notion, I can tell you that. So, oh, all right. Let's see. Well, that was fun. I almost wish I had slapped up his other video about other crap too, but yeah, he has other one. But see, announcements. Do I have any announcements? Oh yes, this new series I'm doing on Wednesdays. Yeah, let's open that up. But yes, red letters, red flags, a critical journey through the teaching of Jesus will start this Wednesday coming up. So there that. Yeah, it's not working that well. And that's the unfortunate part of it. Like, it's not, that's why we have problems. Like, when we challenge our governmental authorities and we make them prove that what they want done is necessary beyond I said so, therefore, then that causes them to say, oh, they have to like prove that it's a good notion, that it's beneficial for a large number of people, et cetera, et cetera. That's why distrust of people in power is there. And a healthy skepticism doesn't just help you with dealing with religious claims. It pretty much helps you dealing with any claim. So yes. Yeah, you're psyched about this one? Okay. That's good. But yes, we're going to start with an introduction on Wednesday where we're going to talk about what I mean by a teaching of Jesus. I can probably get a little precursor of that here, but to me, there are times when Jesus also has like teachable moments. Like, he's not in front of a crowd teaching people, but like the time he's sitting down with Nicodemus and talking about being born again, that would be, I would consider that a teaching moment. Maybe the woman at the well as well. You know, John has a lot of those teaching moments, so we'll hit those. We're also going to hit the other times where he's sitting down and teaching, but there's some times where Jesus does stuff like miracles and stuff. I'm not covering those parts unless he uses the miracle to teach something. So I'm being somewhat specific, but a little bit broad about what I consider a teaching. So old people got cranky and now you got old and you found out. Yeah, me too. All right. See you later, Storm. Appreciate it. So, but yeah, that's going to be coming up. Normal streaming coming up. I've got a video about my reconstruction for 2025 coming up, but I'm still kind of writing bits and pieces of that. So that's my yearly documentation of my journey that's coming this month. So hang in there. Enjoying life for the most part, hanging out, trying to make the channel better as always. But thanks everybody for stopping by. I think I'm going to call it a night. It's kind of quieted down anyway. So, but just thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate all of you. You guys are great. I want to thank, didn't quite reach the hat moment, but Fred and Martin, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate you. So always a good day. So it was a nice stream. So thanks everybody for stopping by. Yes, nibblify the bite button. May Fangs bless all of you and nibble on all of your hearts. May he purify all of your vegetables with his pointy, sharp teeth to remove the religious corruption from them so that they are purified. Make sure that you leave out a circumcised carrot on top of your stash to protect your stash. It may or may not work, but it's worth a try if you circumcise your carrots and make them even more holy than they already are and leave it on top of your stash. Then Fangs may take the carrot instead of the stash and give it to all of his friends. So make sure you do that. Nom nom and all of that stuff. Blessings from here of all of us here at the Fluffle and from your Grandmaster of the Fluffle, myself. Thank you, one and all. And as always, live your best life. You only get one go around and then it's over. So you want to take all your time, money, and opportunities and give them to yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. And don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith, because that's a dead end. I speak from experience. And as always, folks, thanks for stopping by, and I will see you all again on Monday for the Fireside Chat. See you then.
It's time to take a stand, bringing the truth to a fucked up land. We've had enough of the lies and deceit. We're done for good with the toxicity. All hail Fangs, we are the Rabyd Nation. All hail Fangs, we nation.